Hey, welcome to this episode of the GoToPhysio podcast. We are at episode 62 or season 4, episode 12. Today's episode is all about the GoToClinic patient journey, 6 stages to consistent reviews and referrals for your therapists. Now, in the previous episode, we introduced the GoToClinic Head Physio dashboard, which I've got up on my screen now if you're watching on YouTube. And essentially the GoToClinic standards are the IA rebook rate of around 90%. We want a package of care or patients who bought a plan to be 50%. We want our drop-off percentage to be less than 8%. Our patient visit average 6 plus. Usually, again, that's going to depend on the type of patient you see. And your utilization of your therapist to be at least 70%. Now, why do we need the 6-stage framework? Well, on my journey as a clinic owner and mentoring therapists, when I started to introduce the Head Physio dashboard into my own clinic, I needed a way to essentially figure out where my clinicians were going wrong and what help and support they needed. And that's where then I had to break it down into stages. And I didn't know it was going to be 6 stages at the time. And I went, right, what is the most simple and direct way that I can quickly audit my therapist numbers and understand what key inputs are not happening that's leading to these outputs? Because remember, as I spoke about in the last episode, these GoToClinic Head Physio numbers, these are outputs. These are outputs of things that have happened. Okay, they're lagging indicators of something that's already happened. And inputs, which is the therapist's actions and behaviors that they're doing on a daily basis, is leading to these outputs. So if we want to improve the outputs and the numbers, then we need to change the inputs. So what I needed a way to quickly go, okay, why is this number like this? Which stage is this problem? And then when I know the stage, then I can break it down into the key actions that needs to happen at that stage so I can fix the number quickly. Okay, so I hope that makes sense as to why I've had to come up with this in order to help my own clinicians, but also to help other therapists become really good head physios. Because what happens as you grow your clinic and you start to hire other therapists, you have to transition from being a really good therapist to being a really good head physio, because these numbers are absolutely critical to your reputation of your clinic, to your patients' outcomes, but also obviously to your clinic's profitable growth. So these numbers, as I said in the previous episode, all they do is they track the customer journey. They take the emotion out of the decision making and they tell us really how good we are at helping a patient come in for the first session. The patient asks us for help with something specific. These numbers are taking all the emotion out of it and actually showing us how good we are at actually discharging patients. So there's a lot of value to it. So what are the 6 key milestones that need to happen in order to achieve these outputs? So the 6 stages of the patient journey, there's a milestone at each stage that we need to keep patients progressing through if we want to get consistent reviews and referrals. And the beauty of these milestones is there's key actions that need to happen at each stage or each milestone. And then once we understand where the problem is for the patient at what stage, then we can quickly change the actions that's happening at that stage for our therapist. So it's a bit like a diagnostic board that I've had to create here. Okay, so what is the first stage that we need a patient to pass in order to give us the best chance of getting consistent reviews and referrals? So the first stage for us is the patient needs to buy into the treatment plan. Because if the patient doesn't buy into the treatment plan and the therapist, then it doesn't matter how good our clinical skills are, or hands-on techniques, or rehab. It's going to be very, very difficult to keep that patient progressing all the way through to the final session, especially after the first few sessions when motivation begins to drop. And again, the beauty of understanding this milestone is we can audit this in our notes very, very quickly. We can audit the ability to extract value from the patient and actually the communication from the therapist if we have a clinical notes template set up correctly, like we do in the GoToClinic Mastermind. So there's some key actions, and I'll break down these actions in later episodes. We'll focus on the milestones and the actions that need to happen in each one, okay? But for now, you just need to know that if your therapist's IA rebook rate is low, or if their package conversion is low, then stage 1 is a big one. Stage 1 is predominantly the one that I see time and time again, that doesn't happen, okay? And patients will progress into the second and third session even, but they didn't really understand the treatment plan or buy into the treatment plan, or weren't even given a treatment plan in the first session. So a lot of symptoms that you'll see later on with your head physio dashboard numbers, a lot of that has happened as a second order consequence to the patient never actually passing stage one. Okay, so stage one is probably the most important out of all of them. Okay, our therapists need to have the confidence to confidently answer the 4 pro-sport questions. What's the problem? Why did it happen? What's the plan? How many sessions is it going to take? So stage one is all about buying into the treatment plan. Stage 2 is the patient needs to feel a difference in the first session. So a patient can buy into the treatment plan, but if they come in a lot of pain and they leave in the same pain and they're not feeling any difference to the session, okay, then that's a problem for us, okay? Because then what happens is self-doubt starts to creep in. Am I going to waste my money? Is this worth my time? Okay, do I trust this therapist? And do I trust myself to actually deliver this plan and get results with the patient? The 4 big objections you're going to run into. So what the actions that really need to happen here, and again, I'm keeping this high level in this episode, is the therapist's ability to treat the right tissues at the right time, or give the right reassurance to the patient in the right way and communicate that in the right delivery method to reassure the patient in order to decrease their pain experience, improve their range of motion specific to their patient-defined value outcomes. So this is where the clinical skills gets actually pretty important. Okay, now in the GoToClinic hub that I've created for clinic owners and therapists, I have a fast start section. Okay, and I've created a fast start section where if you've got a knee pain patient coming in, a back pain patient coming in, shoulder pain patient, in the fast start section, I've put in a few hands-on techniques and rehab techniques that are going to get results quickly. Now, again, that's going to change the pain experience, which is fine. But the key and the art of this then is obviously keeping the pain away, because it's quite easy to change pain, but it's hard to keep that pain away. And that's where in the fast start section, the hands-on techniques, we can change pain very quickly. But then the rehab techniques, we also have a fast start section, because there's going to be a few key movements that the patient needs to be successful with in everyday life. And if we can change their low tolerance through these tissues, we can change their pain experience very quickly, okay? Assuming that they're not centrally sensitized and stuff like that. And even with those patients, we can still make a big difference in those scenarios from my experience, okay? So again, that's one way we can do it. There's obviously other ways as well in terms of reassurance for patients. And I would also argue that the treatment plan and the treatment actually starts in stage 1 of the patient buying into the treatment plan. Because what you do when you design a treatment plan for a patient is you give them a lot of reassurance and a lot of hope. And that can instantly relax a lot of patients as well, okay? So I'm not saying in stage 2 that it all has to be about hands-on and rehab. What you'll find is that a lot of patients, and again, if we ask the right questions in the subjective assessment and we understand what they really wanted from the session, actually getting them past stage 1 is value, where they can feel a difference, where they start to relax, they're hopeful, they're clear on what they need to do. That could be actually the thing that passes stage 2 also. Okay, so don't just think it's all about the hands-on and the rehab. But as I said, the fast start sections in the GoToClinic hub are designed for that, as well as obviously our patient adherence model that we use in terms of explaining the problem, solution, and plan for a patient also. So the patient has now felt a difference in the first session. So we're assuming our patient has bought into the treatment plan. We're assuming that they felt a difference in the first session. And really why that's important is they're starting to gain momentum, okay? It's very, very tricky, and we've all been there with patients where if they're not making momentum and they're not seeing progress, they turn into nightmare patients. They're demotivated, they're listening with glazed eyes, they're not really buying in. It's going to be an absolute nightmare. So those 2 things are really, really important in order to give us the best chance of reviews and referrals. And remember, that's why we're doing this 6 stages, is to give us the best chance of keeping that patient progressing and ultimately getting reviews and referrals. Okay, well, obviously, of course, helping them achieve their goals and earning those reviews and referrals. So what is stage 3? Well, stage 3 is that the patient actually rebooks after the initial assessment and attends the second session. Okay, now you might say, well, what's the difference between 2 and 3 here? Usually how I differentiate this, again, I'm going to audit the clinician's notes and I'm going to look at what the patient said in their notes of what they want in terms of how they define value and the treatment that we delivered in order to do that for stage 2. So again, are we changing their pain experience? Are we helping them be successful with the outcomes that they need to do on a daily basis? Then stage 3, it becomes really all about what exercises do we prescribe the patient to maintain that progress after the hands-on treatment or whatever we've done in the week ahead to help the patient be successful. So what I'm doing in stage 3 really is I'm looking at the actions and auditing how well is our rehab plan aligned with the patient's defined value outcomes. Okay, so again, if that patient needs to be successful going up and down the stairs all week and we're giving them something that they have to lie on their back to do, where's the dynamic correspondence to that? Okay, a classic example of this was one of my own clinicians where they passed stage 1 and 2, and the key thing the patient wanted help with that week was she wanted to be able to sit pain-free, okay, in the car and at the desk. And a lot of the treatment and the rehab that was delivered to that patient was all about improving their low tolerance through their leg. Okay, now again, the therapist wasn't wrong in terms of their clinical reasoning, in terms of they think that's driving a lot of the issues upstream, but the rehab wasn't optimized to help the patient be successful that week in terms of helping her actually relax when she sits, lengthen her diaphragm, take away all that protective tone and fear around that. So it was just a mismatch in the alignment of the treatment plan. So this is where a rehab becomes really important to set us up for success with the patient so that they can feel the progress throughout the week. Because again, if they do stage 1 and 2 and they're great, but then they don't feel any difference between session 1 and 2, there's just a higher risk that they become demotivated, they don't see the value, and then those objections start to come in. Is this really going to work? The self-doubt starts to kick in. Am I going to waste money? Am I going to waste my time? Do I trust this therapist? Do I trust myself to actually do these exercises and get these results? So we need to have ways to make the exercises easy to fit into their daily life and create changes where they can feel the difference between session 1 and session 2. So that's really the key inputs and actions that need to happen in session 3. So before we go on to stage 4, stage 1, 2, and 3, they're really going to correspond with your first 2 GoToClinic head physio dashboards. Okay, so your 2 big numbers that we're going to look at here to look at these stages, and if the patient's past stage 1 to 3, it's really going to be your IA rebook percentage and your patients that convert into packages, okay, that essentially say, you know what, I buy into this treatment plan, you've told me all the things I needed to hear, you've overcome all my objections, I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is, I'm willing to buy the package and just get this done, okay? Because again, the packages need to obviously be positioned as saving money. Okay, so the packages are generally going to save the patient money, okay, if they buy in bulk. Just like you go to a supermarket and you buy a tin of beans or you buy a 4-pack of beans, the 4-pack of beans is always going to be cheaper, okay? It's the exact same in the physio industry. It's just we have this mindset around, oh, it's unethical to sell packages. Well, actually, you're just helping the patient save money, okay? They're buying in bulk. It's the same as every other industry, okay? And we're not saying that they're going to do 10 sessions, they're going to come in and they're going to have the same thing every session. There's going to be a plan in place, which is stage 1. And every single session, there's going to be a milestone they're going to be hitting. So those 2 numbers, IA rebook percentage and package conversions, if they're really poor, then the patient, usually from my experience, hasn't passed stage 1, 2, or 3. Stage 1 a lot of time, which means that there's some actions that haven't been done in stage 1 and 2 or 3. And we can actually audit the clinician's notes very quickly to see this if we have got our head physio systems and our business systems set up correctly. So stage 4, what is stage 4? Well, stage 4 needs to be that the patient hits their first 3 milestones within the first 3 sessions. Now, what do I mean by milestones? Again, if you look at a couple of episodes ago, I talked about patient value outcomes. Patient value outcomes are everything in private practice. This is how the patient defines value, okay? Perceived value is how the patient or what the patient is expecting to receive. So these are the outcomes that the patient has defined as valuable to them. Now, these could be everyday outcomes like getting up and down off the chair pain-free, up and down the stairs, whatever it is, whatever's meaningful for the patient. Now, the values and the value outcomes, I should say, are very powerful because they now hold us as clinicians accountable to the patient. They hold us as clinicians accountable to our clinic, and they hold us as clinicians accountable to ourselves. And the beauty of patient value outcomes is you maintain your treatment autonomy. I don't care what way you treat. Once you work within your scope of practice, you're ethical, and you achieve that patient outcome. It doesn't matter. And that's the beauty of our profession, is that there's more than one way to achieve the outcomes. There's more than one approach. But you have to be accountable to the patient and actually know that what you're doing, you're clinically reasoning your treatment, and your treatment is aligned to how your patient defines value, because that's the thing that matters at the end of the day. And if you're not aligning your treatment with the patient, and often there's a mismatch where the therapist is talking about pain, range of motion, all this, and all the patient cares about is picking their kids up or doing the gardening, there's a mismatch. You're speaking different languages. So these outcomes are important, and then having some objectivity where we can actually say, is this patient on track to hit their first 3 milestones within the first 3 sessions? Now, really what that is we're just getting an objective way to say this patient is making progress. Because if the patient is off track to hit the first 3 milestones within the first 3 sessions, these are the higher risk patients. So what do we do usually, and what do most business coaching programs do? Let's get the admin to spend loads of time ringing up the cancellations, did not rebooks. Okay, all of these cancellations, but it's all reactive. Let's be proactive and put head physio systems in place to identify the patients at greatest risk of dropping off in the first place. So again, this is a way, it's not perfect, but at least it's a way to identify the potential patients at risk. Whoever is not on track at achieving their outcomes. So if you don't have your patient value outcomes in place, you don't have your 6 stages to identify, and stage 4 being the first 3 milestones, then it's very hard to identify these people, okay? If you put these in place, it's very easy, okay? And then guess what? These are the patients that we're discussing in our in-service trainings. These are the patients where your therapist then can ask for help. But the beauty of this also is after the second session, you as a clinician can actually identify if your strategy, if your technique and your reasoning is spot on to achieve the outcome, or if the patient's off track and that you need to ask for help. And that's where in the GoToClinic hub, we've got all the resources there. We've got all the clinical reasoning, all the techniques for you to audit. Am I overlooking? Am I missing something here? Okay. Or you can use the difficult patients form and ask for help early before the patient drops off. Okay, so this is a way that we can be proactive. And if the patient isn't hitting the first 3 milestones within 3 sessions, there's no momentum. Okay, and these are the patients. Remember, everything we're doing here is to get reviews and referrals, and obviously get the patient to progress and actually achieve the results and their definition of success in the first place. So it's really, really useful to be able to say and have this as your yardstick. And again, the first 3 outcomes could be very basic stuff. Okay. But again, at least we're accountable and we're showing the patient undeniable value that they've actually received as well. So then what's stage 5? So again, we're assuming now the patient's done all first 4 stages, and then we're assuming that they've hit the first 3 milestones within the first 3 sessions. If you start doing that and your therapist is passing stages 1 to 4, you're going to see your PVAs well over 3, okay? If you've got a patient visit average for your therapist at around a 3, okay, then the chances are they're not hitting those first 3 milestones. Okay, the patient isn't seeing the value. And again, is that a problem in stage 1, 2, or 3, or is it a problem at stage 4? Okay, and again, remember, a lot of issues that you might see at stage 4, it's a second order consequence of something that didn't happen in stage 1. So really respect stage 1 as well. So stage 5 is the patient keeps progressing even when the pain is easing. Okay, so that's usually going to happen around session 4, 5, and 6. Okay, because again, if we've hit stage 4, usually if you've hit the first 3 milestones within the first 3 sessions, they're making progress. They're doing things now with a lot less pain. They're improving their function. They're growing in confidence. So this key stage now here is critical. And this is where a lot of clinicians struggle, is when the pain's easing, where do I go next with the patient? But the beauty of it, if you nail stage 1, you've already got your plan in place and the patient knows the plan and you've set expectations. A lot of times here is there's a difference where patients are talking about pain in the first session. The therapist is talking about pain and range of motion. Then the pain goes, range of motion improves, so that the patient thinks they're done. Whereas if you set expectations, you understand what the patient wants and what they define as valuable, and you put those as outcomes, then it's clear to the patient at stage 5 that there's actually more work to be done. So everything that you do in stage 1 and our patient adherence model does the heavy lifting for you in stage 5. Okay, so again, here now we need the patient to understand that there's more progress to be made, and then to actually want to continue to make more progress. Okay, because again, stage 5 is the equivalent in pro sport. An athlete, grade 2 hammy, they're symptomatic on the bed. By day 10, they're pain free. Okay, but they mightn't be training until day 28. So it's that gap of actually getting the patient back to, as Louis Gifford said, thoughtless, fearless movement, essentially. So stage 5 is all about the patient understanding that there's more work to be done, But the key thing here is that they're clear on what they're going to be doing. Okay, it's not just that a case of, oh, look, we need more sessions. Why do we need more sessions? But most importantly, how are these sessions going to achieve the outcomes that the patient has defined themselves in the first session? Okay, because all we're doing here is the patient has designed a custom plan of what they want to achieve. They've told you all of this in the first session. In stage 5, all you're doing is going, okay, you've told me you wanted this. Here's where we're at in the plan. Here's what we've got left to go. Okay, that's essentially the key actions in stage 5. And then we get them to stage 6, which is the patient's being exposed to the worst case scenario and they're moving with thoughtless, fearless movement. So stage 6, basically, the key actions there is that we've actually exposed them to these things. Okay, and a lot of therapists, they really struggle, from my experience, in bridging the gap from low to high level rehab. They don't know where to go next. And that usually then results in them not being able to nail stage 5 and stage 6. Okay, so again here, your patient has defined what success looks like to them in the first session. This is just about achieving that to them and also exposing them to worst case scenarios. Now, why do we want to do that? Well, we have to do that to get them to thoughtless, fearless movement. And this is where the reviews and the referrals are built, because this is the bit where they're fearful, okay? And on the other side of fear is where all good things lie, okay? So this is the bit here now where your patient's going to be fearful of doing certain things. They do those things and they come out the other side with a smile on their face. Their confidence grows. Okay, so this is all about the feeling that essentially is customer experience, because customer experience is a feeling. Okay, you can feel it when you have good customer experience. Okay, and that's what you're doing here, is you're giving your patient a smile on their face, going, wow, I didn't think I'd be able to do that again. And that's the thing that's going to get you the reviews and the referrals, where you exceed expectations. Because just getting them to stage 5 is you're just giving them what they expected. Getting them to stage 6 is you're exceeding their expectations of how they perceived value in the first place. Okay, so this stage then, it's undeniable proof that we've actually delivered the value that the patient has asked us for in the initial assessment. So stages 4, 5, and 6, you're going to start to see here, those really influence your patient visit average, your cancellation did not rebook, and obviously your utilization then as a second order consequence to that. So if you don't have stage 1 right, as I said, you'll see a lot of symptoms downstream, but your patient visit average will be low. If your patient average is quite high, if it's 4 or 5, okay, and your IA book's good, then chances are there's a stage 4, 5, or sorry, a stage 5 or 6 issue. So there's some key actions not happening at stage 5 and stage 6 in order to improve those outputs. So you can see here now, the beauty of this, of what I've had to develop is, first of all, what's our metrics of success to take the emotion out of it? Then what are the key stages that the patient needs to go through? And then at each stage, we can correlate that to the session. So where's our therapist dropping off, our patient's dropping off? And usually then we can correlate that to a stage. And then we can see, okay, well, what were the stages before that? And what were the key actions that didn't happen in that stage? Okay, so this is a board that I use and I train clinic owners to use, to be able to see the key inputs and actions that didn't happen in the treatment room for their clinicians. And then the beauty of that is we can just fix those inputs, empower the therapist, and then the outputs, the numbers, take care of themselves, which then the patient's going to achieve their value outcomes that they've defined in the first session. You're going to ethically keep the patient progressing, and then you're going to get best chance of getting reviews and referrals, which makes your marketing a lot easier. So that's your head physio dashboard, working with your 6 stages. Okay, and then in the coming episodes, I'm going to show you now how you can double your profits by using the 6-stage framework with your head physio dashboard, with your patient value outcomes, because the 3 of those working together, it's incredibly powerful. And this can double your profits without constantly needing new patients, because all you need to do is understand what inputs need to happen in order to change those outputs. You change these outputs and these numbers, you'll see that in your bottom line, in your financial P&L also. Okay, so that's it for this episode. If you want some help implementing this, the GoToClinic mentorship and mastermind. So the GoToClinic mentorship is predominantly aimed at solo clinic owners. The GoToClinic mastermind is aimed at multi-therapist clinic owners. So if you've got a lot of therapists, we will give them access to our mentorship system. We'll help you install the head physio dashboards, put the business systems in place to be able to understand all of this, and most importantly, create a self-managing clinician culture within your clinic that drives ethical profits without constantly needing new patients. If you're not interested in putting business systems in place and the business coaching side, you just want us to train your clinicians, we've got a Train My Clinician program that does just that. And what we do here is we use your head physio numbers for that. So again, it's not just a case to come in for some CPD. We look at the opportunities there and empower your therapist. So again, if you don't know your head physio numbers, that's fine. We've got all the cheat sheets. We'll show you how to find those, and then we'll work with you every month to see what your clinician's numbers are, and we'll use those to drive their performance in terms of getting CPD that actually gets a return on investment for you and your clinic, but most importantly, helps your patients progress. If you're a therapist working for someone else in private practice, and you just want to improve your numbers because the language of high performance is numbers, then the GoToTherapist mentorship is the most appropriate way we can help you. Okay, so whatever bucket you're in there, whether you're a therapist working for someone else, you just want to achieve clinical excellence, the therapist mentorship is great. If you're a clinic owner, solo clinic owner, the clinic mentorship. And then if you're a multi-therapist clinic owner, GoToClinic Mastermind, or if you just want your clinicians trained, we can do that too with our Train My Clinician pathway. So really, we've got everything you need to help you grow your clinic depending on what stage and journey you are. Okay, so that's it for this week. Thank you for listening. In the next couple of weeks, I'm going to show you how to use the Head Physio dashboard in the 6 stages to double your profits without needing more and more new patients. Okay, that's it this week. Thank you very much. I'll see you soon. Thanks for tuning in to this week's show. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, if you'd like a free copy of my Head Physio Systems 6-step checklist that I use to personally audit my own therapists to make sure that they can keep patients progressing even when the pain is eased, so that we can ethically increase our patient numbers, our revenues and referrals, head over to www.thegotophysio.com/checklist and I'll get that sent straight over to you. That's it for this week. I'll see you in next week's show.